Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, Friday, June 2nd. It's going to be a 13-game main slate in total today, so a lot to kind of talk about, a lot to mention. Going to be back more to my typical format for today. Will be no recaps. This kind of just did an in-depth look of the slate yesterday. So mainly going to look at the weather report, go over to FanDuel, talk about the core picks that I do have for today. If you're checking me out for the very first time, go over one pitcher, four hitters that I do like in general. Don't have to play all five in the same lineup, but if you want to, you can. Just get different guys that I like to highlight that either have good history in the past, been doing well lately, or, it's a friendly matchup just in general. It's going to be a lot to talk about from that perspective today. 13-game main slate. Definitely feel free to mix and match. Bottom half of my cheat sheet we'll get over to as well to talk about the top GPP teams to stack for today, just in general. But with that being said, we're going to get into the weather for today. So there's about 4 games that we're kind of looking at weather-wise. Doesn't look like anything that will get postponed, but there is potential delays to be had. So as we get talking about the weather for today, the first one that we'll get to is this Tampa Bay Rays game and the Boston Red Sox. It's in Boston, 63% chance of rain at this point in time. So this is the most likely place to rain throughout the day on the entire slate. So maybe we'll be a little bit more risk adverse to this game just in general. Probably just going to avoid it a little bit more. Tyler Glass now, there's some upside there. Second start coming back from his injury. And then Garrett Whitlock, there could be a little bit of upside going against him, but I wouldn't feel too bad about avoiding this game just in general. New York Mets should be a pretty interesting pitch-up matchup with Chris Bassett, who pitched for the Mets last season. And then we have Justin Verlander on the other side. 22% chance of rain, maybe a potential delay, but nothing too major at this point in time. And then as we keep moving down, we're going to keep talking about some more of this weather. We got the Colorado Rockies and the Kansas City Royals, 22% chance of rain there as well. Probably a game that goes off, probably a game that you want to have some exposure to on today's slate, especially if you're playing multiple lineups. Since both these pitchers are not the greatest in the world, we got Chase Anderson for the Rockies and Jordan Lyles, who is 0-9 and an ERA over 7 for Kansas City. So the Rockies probably going to be a pretty popular stack, but Kansas City would be another team recommend stacking. Although Chase Anderson's been all right so far to start the season, doesn't have that long track record of being that great of a pitcher outside of a few seasons here and there. But as we keep moving down for the weather part, we do have Cleveland and Minnesota as well, 35% chance of rain. Maybe a potential delay, but doesn't look like a postponement at this point in time. If anything does change with these games throughout the day, we'll leave a comment down below. If any other weather changes happen for any of the other games, we'll leave a comment there as well. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of weather. So those are the 4 games really to watch in terms of weather. Like I said, maybe the Boston Tampa Bay one, maybe that's a game to punt for today, but the other ones should be fine. And with that being said, we're going to stop sharing the screen, move over to FanDuel, talk about the core plays that I do have for today. So as I mentioned, if you're brand new to the video, to the live stream, checking out for the very first time, go over one pitcher that I do like today, just in general for these core pick videos, and then 4 hitters. So the pitcher for me today is going to be Bailey Ober. A lot of times in these core pick videos, I try to pick the guy that feels like the safest pitcher on the slate for me today. If you want to play somebody that has maybe a little bit more upside than Bailey Ober in terms of a strikeout perspective, you can do that as well. He's going against the Cleveland Indians today. He got 49 points versus them earlier this season. Bailey Ober has actually pitched extremely well as of late, averaging almost 33 fantasy points per game. Obviously, we're looking for like 40 plus for him. Last year when he faced Cleveland, he did get 30 points for them. So he's got a pretty safe floor in this matchup. You like the strikeout upside to be a little bit higher. But, if he's on top of his stuff, he's a taller pitcher too. So when those guys are kind of rolling and got their stuff going, that's when you're going to get the good starts out of them. Sometimes when the mechanics go to the wayside and everything else like that, that's where you end up with a little bit more risk. But if you want to pay up for somebody else instead, like a Shohei Ohtani, a Framber Valdez, there's plenty of good pitching on today's slate. Or if you want to pay down just a little bit, there is other options there too as well. $9,900. Justin Verlander going against Toronto is right in that same ballpark. He probably might be a little bit more popular just because of the name recognition, but Bailey Ober definitely pretty warranted on today's slate overall. Then as we move down, we're going to go with his teammate Alex Kirilloff. He is $2,900. He's been hitting the wall pretty well since he's been back off the injured list, and then he got called up from the minors after that. So a guy that has a pretty long injury history in his career, was a top 100 prospect once upon a time, has shown flashes in the past, hasn't really ever hit for as much power as a lot of people would hope for. He's only eligible at first base at this point in time. There's been times in the past where he's eligible at first base and outfield. But, $2,900, not a bad price tag for him whatsoever. He is 3 for 5 versus Aaron Savali in his career. Aaron Savali is returning from the IL himself, so he's probably not going to pitch too far into this game. See how effective he is just in general. But looking at some of the recent games for Alex Kirilloff, we see the 315 average, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs on the season, averaging just under 10 fantasy points for $2,900. Obviously, he had 15.7 points the last 2 games. And he's had at least 9 points in the last 4 games, 4-game hitting streak, modest 4-game hitting streak going on there, a couple multi-hit games. So looking like a pretty favorable matchup for him just in general. A cheaper option down at first base if you want to go with somebody else. There's definitely options that we can look at first base as well, whether it's a guy like Bryce Harper, who is also outfield eligible. There's some higher end options. Mainly for me today, it's going to be the mid-range guys. It's going to be like the Andrew Vaughn. It's going to be the Christian Walker. It's going to be the Alex Kirilloff that I'm playing the most of, especially depending on the stacks that I'm building throughout the day. Then we moved down to second base. So this is a guy I talked quite a bit about yesterday in Ha-Seong Kim. He's been playing really well as of late. I believe he hit leadoff yesterday for San Diego Padres. Going against the Cubs today. It is against Jameson Taillon, who's been not good at all to start the season. And Ha-Seong Kim is eligible at second base. He's eligible at third base. We see a 241 average on the season. He doesn't have any career history versus Jameson Taillon. Forgot to mention that already. Averaging just under 9 fantasy points per game, $2,800. Like I said, the versatility between second base and third base is going to make him pretty appealing today. Padres are going to be a team that we do like stacking just in general, and he's had a pretty good streak as of late. 3 20-point games in his last 4 games. He's got a hit in 4 out of those last 5 games as well. So some pretty good history in the recent term for him. Going against Jameson Taillon, who has not been yet to figure it out so far this season. Definitely looks like a pretty favorable matchup there. Then as we keep moving down, I went with 2 outfielders here. These are, when I'm talking about the core picks today, definitely pick and choose which ones you want to play, especially as you're kind of building out your stacks and everything else like that. Don't have to necessarily play these 4 hitters together, but I wanted to highlight Jordan Walker, who just came back up from the minor leagues at $2,000. I believe this will be his first game back. So Lars Nootbaar is dealing with a little bit of an injury as well. Walker was starting to right the ship a little bit in AAA, but you see even before he got sent down, he still had 274, he had 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, just under 9 fantasy points per game. He is the minimum price tag at $2,000 today going against Rosani Contreras. He does not have history versus Contreras in the major league level. Don't think he's even faced him in the minor league level either, though. So no real factor there to say one guy is stronger than the other guy. But if Jordan Walker ends up starting today, flat minimum $2,000 definitely does up for some upside there. As I said, just got recently recalled from AAA, was one of the best prospects in all of baseball, had a very strong start to spring training, then kind of struggled a little bit as the season went along, but seems to have fixed his mistakes at this point in time. And then last but not least, I kind of like Bryce Harper today. He's $3,600. He is eligible at first base. He's eligible at outfield. He's 2 for 5 versus Josiah Gray in his career with 1 home run as well. Josiah Gray led the league in home runs allowed last season. He's had a really strange start to this year, Josiah Gray. ERA is really good. The whip's kind of suspect. He hasn't stricken out as many people as of, he's done in the past. So it's kind of been a weird start to the season for him. I don't really know how to explain it completely for, the average person, but you will look at some of the advanced analytics and it's not too favorable for him at this point in time. Had a strong spring training though, but Bryce Harper, since he's come back, he's been pretty good. 304 average, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, just over 11 fantasy points per game. $3,600 been the cheapest price point I think we've seen him at so far this season, so definitely don't mind that whatsoever. Has some pretty strong upside here. Even looking at some of these recent games, it's been a little bit hit or miss, but the type of upside that Bryce Harper can have on any given slate, definitely a matchup versus Josiah Gray that I would like to highlight just overall today. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, like I said, probably want to mix and match these headers just a little bit more, build out some stacks and everything else like that. But just some guys that I liked highlighting today in general. $13,700, just over $3,400 per player. So a lot of good high-end players today. Definitely can mix and match some of those in your lineup at that point in time. Obviously, you could make a more balanced build if that's something that appeals to you as well. But with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. We'll go over to the YouTube community tab, go to the bottom half of the cheat sheet, and talk about the top GPP teams that I do have to stack for today overall. So that is the FanDuel screen. So I do apologize for that. Must have clicked the wrong tab over there. YouTube community tab. So cheat sheet is up on the YouTube community tab. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's 100% free. It's also up on Patreon. The Patreon is a small monthly donation. There is more in-depth detailed notes there, hitter versus pitcher matchups, breaking down each pitcher, their past performances against these teams in, the recent history. So 2022, 2023, everything else like that. And then kind of whether I would consider them a risky play, someone I'm avoiding today, or somebody that would be in play for me as a pitcher today in general. Have the top stacks. So any of the top stacks do not fit on the cheat sheet also go over there as well. So those would be kind of like my 6-7, especially on the 13-game slate. But with that being said, the top stacks that I do have for today, Philadelphia Phillies going against Josiah Gray. Like I said, last season, he led the majors or National League. Can't remember which off the top of my head. I think it was just the National League in home runs allowed. The Phillies hitters do have really good history versus him in the past, whether it's a Trey Turner, whether it's a Bryce Harper. Brandon Marsh is another guy that has a home run off him. There's a couple other guys here and there. Nick Castellanos, not the greatest versus him, but Kyle Schwarber is, but Schwarber's been really struggling as of late, so I didn't really throw him in the cheat sheet or anything else like that. But Phillies bat's definitely one that I would be interested in today. The Minnesota Twins, another one, going against Aaron Savali. A lot of them have hit Savali pretty well in the past. Jorge Polanco is returning off the IL, has a little bit of decent history versus them. Alex Kirilloff highlighted in the cheat sheet. Royce Lewis, been pretty strong since he's come back from his ACL surgery. Byron Buxton, if you want to go with him, he's got 2 home runs versus Savali. And then I believe Max Kepler as well, but he had a little bit of a migraine issue yesterday. We'll see if he's good to go today or not. Then we move over to the Chicago White Sox. They're going against a rookie pitcher making his MLB debut for the Detroit Tigers and Reese Olson. Olson really wasn't that great in AAA, wasn't that great in AA, so it should be a favorable matchup for the White Sox. I do like Andrew Vaughn, who's been pretty good as of late. If you want to take a shot on like Tim Anderson. Romy Gonzalez actually is second base and outfield eligible. I believe he's like $2,700 at this point in time, but he's got a home run in 3 of his last 4 games, 3 straight games before his last game. So that could be an interesting play there. If you want to go with Eloy Jimenez, I think he looks pretty strong today as well. Kind of mix and match some other pieces from that lineup could make some sense as well. And then we move over to the San Diego Padres. They were the best team to stack yesterday. After, looking back, hindsight's 2020. They were the 4th team for me just in general yesterday. Still had a little bit of exposure to them with Kim, with Tatis and everything else like that. If you played them yesterday, probably did pretty well. They look really strong again today going against Jamison Taillon. Not a lot of history there in the past, but these bats are pretty hot at this point in time. Jamison Taillon has been terrible to start the season, so just keep that in mind. And then we had the Colorado Rockies going against Jordan Lyles, another pitcher who's been terrible to start season, 0-9, ERA over 7 at this point in time. Not that much history there against the Rockies, but do like Ryan McMahon once again. I'm trying to remember who else I threw in the cheat sheet. Ezekiel Tovar, who's been doing pretty well as of late. Some power speed combo there. $2,600 could make some sense. Randall Grichuk's actually hit Jordan Lyles pretty well in his career if he ends up starting today, so definitely look out for him. And then on the opposite side of the game, we'll talk about the Royals just a little bit as well, going against Chase Anderson. Some of those guys, not much history there, but guys like Matt Duffy and then Jackie Bradley Jr. actually, oddly enough, has good history versus him. Wouldn't say too much about playing Jackie Bradley Jr., but he is dirt cheap and he's got 2 home runs in 10 at bats against Chase Anderson in his career. Probably not somebody I'm getting to myself, but figure we throw that in there as a little tidbit if you want to go there as well. But that would be more of a large field GPP, maybe if you're like 150 max, and then he ends up in the starting lineup for the Royals overall. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. As always, I'll be leaving the weather updates down there as well if anything majorly changes throughout the day. As many starting lineups as I can get to tonight. And then if there's any updates to the core throughout the day, we'll be leaving it there as a pinned comment as well. Definitely be sure to let me know your favorite play on tonight's slate. Very interested in hear what you guys have to say, whether it's somebody from my core 5 picks, whether it's somebody from my cheat sheet, whether it's somebody from my top stacks, or whether it's a completely different player, which there's a pretty good chance that it is today on this 13-game main slate. Definitely interested in hear what you guys have to say. But with that being said, if you enjoyed my video, if you enjoyed, But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, enjoy the content that I am putting out. definitely feel free to subscribe. Would definitely appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, it's mainly MLB DFS as well as USFL DFS. That USFL DFS video will be coming out later today, probably this afternoon. We'll be breaking down a recap of week number 7. Looking forward to week 8 and giving you guys some different plays for there over on the DraftKings side. But with that being said, that's pretty much all that I do have at this point in time. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, as always, leave it down in the comments. Definitely do appreciate everyone taking the time out of your day, whether you're watching live or on replay, to check out this video, check out this live stream. Definitely means a lot to me. And I hope that each and every, and I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.